Hey, it's Chris Jackman from the Aberdeen Law Firm, and today I want to talk to you about a question that I get from a lot of my clients, and that question is about how much they either have to pay or possibly receive for child support and spousal support. I'll start with spousal support, and then we'll work our way over to child support. In the family law world, you're going to hear a couple different terms for spousal support. You're going to hear words like maintenance or alimony. They really mean the same thing, and all it means is one spouse is going to be receiving money and the other spouse is going to be paying money. In my experience, I just call it spousal support because everybody understands what that means. So let's just break down how judges and how the courts typically look at spousal support. A lot of people think that there's some kind of law out there that has like a math formula where if you're making X amount of money and you're married for Y number of years, then you're automatically guaranteed to get spousal support for a certain amount of money for a certain amount of time. And the reason why I wanted to have this talk with you today is because that's just simply not true. It's a myth that a lot of people believe to be true, and there may be some websites out there that you found that say something to that effect, but it's just not true. If you look at the law as to how spousal support is calculated and how it's come up with, there's just a lot of factors that the judge is going to look at in your case to figure out how much you're either paying or how much you're going to receive. And I just want to kind of walk through some of those factors so you understand what those are. First factor is going to be how long you were married. So when we're looking at how long you could potentially receive spousal support, obviously the length of the marriage is going to determine that. And I tell my clients if they've only been married for a really short period of time, call it a year or two, you're probably not going to get any spousal support. Or if so, it's not going to last for very long. But if you're looking at a marriage that's lasted 15, 20, 30 years, then you could be paying spousal support for many years. I even had a client one time come to me who was trying to modify his spousal support, who was paying for the rest of his life. He had, for some reason, agreed with his previous lawyer to pay it for the rest of his life. And if you and your spouse agree to that, the judge will sign off on it. But in terms of what a judge would actually do, if you and your spouse don't agree, and again, you've been married for, say, 15, 20, or 30 years, again, there's no math formula, but you're probably looking at 5, 10 years potentially of paying spousal support. A marriage that lasts, let's say, from 5 to 10 years, which would be kind of a middle term marriage, you could be paying spousal support for 2 to 5 years potentially. But that's not the only factor. The length of the marriage isn't the only factor. The other factor the judge is going to look at, and this is the main deciding factor, and it is the ability to pay versus the need to receive the money, right? So if you have someone who's a very high income earning person, and then the other spouse has not worked in 20 years because they've been raising children, for example, then in that example I just gave you, there's a very high likelihood spousal support will be awarded or given for quite a while. And the idea is to give that spouse who needs the money some time to either go back and educate themselves, maybe get a different degree or a certification, or just give them time to kind of get into the job market if they've been out of the job market for a long period of time. So again, the number one factor that the judge is going to look at is the need to pay versus the ability to, or I should say the need for support versus the ability to pay for that support. The other factors the court or the judge is going to look at are things like the earning history of each spouse. How much money has each spouse made over time? Things like education. If one spouse has a PhD or an MBA and the other spouse is a high school graduate or has no degree at all, that's a factor that's going to play into, again, how much money is paid and how long it's paid. But again, when it comes to spousal support, there is no math formula. There's no one specific law that applies. It's just a number of factors that the judge is going to look at. And it's going to be what's called the totality of circumstances, meaning all of those factors combined are going to decide how much and for how long a spouse either has to pay or receive spousal support. And as you can imagine, this is where having a really good, experienced family law lawyer can really help you, because they can really argue either for spousal support or against it off of those factors, and as well as using other similar cases to yours to argue for it. So that's spousal support. I want to touch briefly now on child support. And the reason why I saved child support for second is that child support is actually a much easier thing to calculate, because unlike spousal support, there is actually a calculator that you can find online. And it's done by the state of Washington. And it is something that you absolutely have to pay. Unlike spousal support, where you may not have to pay it at all, child support you absolutely have to pay. And again, it's a simple calculation that we can give you. It's just a worksheet in where you plug in how much money you make versus how much money your spouse makes or your ex makes, what all of your expenses are, for healthcare, utilities, gas, your mortgage or your rent. All of those things are factored into it, as well as other child support payments you may be making. So with child support, it's a really black and white thing. Obviously, we will have scenarios where people hide their income or try to lower their income because they know that will lessen the amount they have to pay in child support. We can definitely help you with that, because the law is that you can't just fill these worksheets out and then send them in to the judge and have them get approved. You actually have to then also provide supporting financial documents such as tax returns, bank statements, credit card statements, debit card statements, things like that. So it is something that has to be proven, and we can help you prove that if you feel like, for example, your spouse is underreporting their income or not being completely honest with how much money they're making. So that's basically how child support works and how spousal maintenance or spousal support works. If you have questions about how this applies to your case, please give us a call. We would love to be able to help you. I hope this has helped you, and I look forward to talking to you soon.